We're just over 3 days away from the NBA trade deadline, and everyone seemingly has their eyes on one team, the Toronto Raptors. They have a lot of quality players that teams want, and at 12th place in the East and 5 games under 500, they seem like probable sellers at the deadline. However, one name has popped up that before seemed unavailable. According to Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, the Raptors are taking trade calls on all-star caliber forward Pascal Siakam. He's having arguably the best season of his career and could take a good team over the top. Many teams would be interested if Siakam is truly available, but I think the most interesting teams are the Nets, Suns, Warriors, and Trailblazers. They're teams trying to stay relevant in this year's championship race, and adding a player like Siakam would immediately make them true contenders. To get an understanding of how Siakam could help the teams and what a potential trade would look like, let's take a look at each of the scenarios. Before we get into the Siakam trade sweepstakes, if you enjoy my content and have watched a few videos of mine, think about subscribing. 96% of my viewers are actually not subscribed, so if you've watched me before and enjoy the content, drop a sub and comment down below. It really helps the channel. Alright, before we get into each of the scenarios, let's take a look at Siakam's season so far. On the year, he's putting up 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. He should have made this year's All-Star game, but he was snubbed, likely due to the Raptors' place in the Eastern Conference standings. However, he would be a great second option or a phenomenal third option for any contender, and he's shown before in his career that he can be a key piece of a championship team like he was in 2019. Now let's get into the possible destinations. Let's start with the Golden State Warriors, who should continue to try to make the most of their championship window with Steph Curry. It's being reported that Curry is expected to miss multiple weeks with an injury, and that could seemingly sideline him until mid-March. The team currently sits at 8th in the West, and if they had something as small as a 3-game losing streak without Curry, they could find themselves slipping outside of the play-in. The team is definitely limited without Curry, but adding an all-star level forward could definitely help the Warriors stay in a playoff spot until their star returns. A deal would either have to be built around Wiggins or Draymond Green, which could be a tough sell for Golden State. However, Draymond recently stated that the writing was on the wall that his Warriors tenure was coming to an end somewhat soon. Adding another star in the process would be great for Golden State and help them continue to be contenders. The deal would also include 1 or 2 of Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, as well as a couple firsts. It won't be cheap, but this move could help the Warriors make a run at a second straight championship. Next, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. They just dealt their second best player in Kyrie Irving, and for this scenario, let's assume KD wants to stay in Brooklyn. They have one of the 5 best players in the league and a legitimate championship opportunity if they do the deadline right. The Toronto Raptors reportedly had interest in Ben Simmons at the 2022 deadline, and they could get him here. He's clearly a depreciated asset and couldn't net use Siakam on his lonesome. You have to include at least 2 firsts, maybe more, maybe the one from Dallas, and adding a young upside player like Cam Thomas feels necessary. He's fresh off of a 44-point outburst, and along with Simmons presents a bunch of upside for the Raptors. The deal would give the Nets a big 3 of KD, Siakam, and Nick Claxton, who's been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Removing Simmons' shooting woes also helps Claxton be less of a problem because of his lack of shooting. A starting 5 of Dinwiddie, KD, Dorian Finney-Smith, Siakam, and Claxton would be one of the best in the league and make the Nets a clear contender along with Boston in the Eastern Conference. The third team to mention is the Phoenix Suns, who clearly want to add star power, and they made a sizable offer for Kyrie before he was moved to Dallas. Assuming Kevin Durant is staying in Brooklyn, Siakam might be the best player on the board for Phoenix. The Raptors have needed a center upgrade for a while now, and DeAndre Ayton seems very much done with the Phoenix Suns. So a deal including Ayton, Cam Johnson, and 2 firsts could probably get it done for Phoenix. Toronto would get their center of the future, and the Suns could capitalize on the end of the Chris Paul era and Devin Booker's return from injury. Phoenix would have a lineup of Paul, Booker, Bridges, Siakam, and either Jock Landale or Bismack Biyombo. They could use an upgrade at center, but the top 4 would be absolutely elite. Earlier on this season, many were writing off the Suns, but a deal like this could help them return to their finals after their 2021 appearance. Finally, let's talk about the Portland Trail Blazers. This is a deal that is meant to capitalize on Damian Lillard's prime and give him his best pick-and-roll partner since LaMarcus Aldridge. A deal is going to be hard for Portland fans, as they'll have to give up one of the super high upside young guys in Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe. It often feels like Dame's and Simons' skill sets are kind of redundant, and I've seen many projected deals include Simons, so that's who I built it around. The deal has the Raptors receiving Simons, Justice Winslow for salary filler, and Yusuf Nurkic, and the Blazers receiving Pascal Siakam and Chris Boucher. The Raptors get a young star to build around going forward, and a center that could look better in a new situation. The Raptors get a young center option in Boucher, and an all-star level forward in Siakam. The Blazers could have a lineup of Lillard, Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, Pascal Siakam, and Boucher, which would make them a seemingly guaranteed playoff team, and Siakam just feels like a cleaner fit than Simons did, although it'd be very difficult to give up on a player like Simons, who's a young 20s, pretty much guaranteed all-star at some point in his career. As we near the 2023 NBA trade deadline, it seems increasingly likely that the Raptors become full sellers. It's reported that they're taking calls on Pascal Siakam, and the two-time All-NBA forward would get a ton of interest. You could get a new young star and multiple picks and a deal for him, and change the trajectory of the Raptors franchise, as well as turning another team into a contender in the process. I think teams like the Warriors, Nets, Suns, and Blazers should have the most interest, as he could truly save their seasons. Let me know what you think the Raptors should do, as he's a great player in the face of the franchise. It's not an easy decision to move on from him, but it could get really interesting if they do so. Thanks for watching. I'm Herm. Have a good one.